Wow, what a read, guys. This book has absolutely hit me for 6. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I will be reviewing Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This is one of my 10 selections of classic books to read this year. I'm undertaking a journey to immerse myself in a little bit of classical fiction just to see if I can develop an appreciation for it that I didn't have when I was reading these books as a kid, and I have to say I have not been disappointed with this book. Now, my book reviews usually go for about 5 minutes. Apologies if this goes a little bit over time because there's a little bit to get through. So this book is only short at 119 pages, and if you haven't read it, you will read through it in a couple of hours. It took me one sitting to get through. But the thing about this book is, being only a short work of fiction, it packs a punch that a normal full-length novel would. It is that powerful. It explores all these themes that are really important. So let's start with what the book is about. So it starts off with George and Lenny. They're two drifters who make their way from place to place, working on ranches as ranch hands, doing odd jobs. This book is set in the Depression era in America in the 1930s, so jobs were very hard to come by. People were desperate to do any form of work, it didn't matter what it was, to keep food on the table and to basically survive. So we find at the start of the book George and Lenny are fleeing from men who are chasing them for some reason, and immediately it hooks you and drags you in, and you think, well, what is going on here? Why are they being chased? What's happening? And you do find out that at their previous workplace on a ranch, Lenny, who unfortunately is intellectually disabled, and George finds himself bailing him out of certain situations, and Lenny is George's cross to bear in this life. So we find out that at their previous workplace there was a rancher's daughter there who had a nice red dress on, and Lenny liked the feel of the material, and Lenny's intentions were perfectly innocent, but the daughter of the rancher overreacted. He touched her dress, he liked how the material felt, she overreacted and thought he was going to assault her or attempt to rape her, and she went crying to the ranch owner, who this caused an uproar. And Lenny, being intellectually disabled, when the daughter started to panic, he started to panic, and he hung onto the dress and eventually ripped the dress because he panicked and froze up and got scared and couldn't let go. So what happens is the daughter runs to the ranch owner, it causes an uproar, and the ranch hands chase George and Lenny, and they're forced to hide in an irrigation ditch overnight until the threat is gone. So then we find that George and Lenny move on to their next place of employment, which is another ranch, and they check in and they meet the other workers there, and everything seems fine for the moment. So we meet a couple of characters. I really liked Candy, who was a fellow ranch hand who has had his hand amputated and just ends up doing odd jobs around the ranch and does cleaning and that sort of thing, but he's obviously very depressed and doesn't like where he is in life. We also meet a very unlikable character called Curly. He's the ranch owner's son, who is the bully of the ranch, and he has small man syndrome. So there are scenes in the book where Lenny, being perfectly innocent, minding his own business, Curly approaches him because he feels threatened by Lenny's size, and he doesn't want the other workers to think he is scared of Lenny. So basically he starts to pick fights with Lenny, and a certain situation arises later on where things come to a head. So as time goes on, Lenny and George get settled into their new working life, and Candy has an old dog, which one of the other ranch workers suggests that he needs to be put down because the dog's smelly and decrepit and old, and Candy thinks, well, you know, he's still my dog. Eventually the dog gets shot, and one of the ranch owners' head foreman has a dog who's just had a litter of puppies and offers one to Candy. And Lenny, who likes small animals, asks George to ask the foreman to have a puppy. Lenny is given a puppy, but he's been told that he mustn't leave the shed where the puppies are because they're too little to be handled too much, and Lenny doesn't know his own strength, and eventually he pats the puppy but accidentally kills it, which is tragic in its own right. And he buries the puppy in hay out in the barn and tries to hide it. And then he gets approached by the ranch owner's daughter, so another ranch owner's daughter, and she talks to him, and they develop somewhat of a bond. And then the conversation comes up about her hair, and she asks Lenny to feel her hair, how soft it is, and Lenny he's very tactile, he likes the feel of things, and he strokes her hair, which is perfectly innocent. Then when she tells him to stop, he doesn't stop, and then when that reaction is given from the ranch owner's daughter, something shifts inside Lenny, and he begins to clam up and freeze up, and then he starts to panic again. And then in an accident, he tells her to be quiet because she's starting to scream while the other workers are on, it's a Sunday off, and they're playing hooky out in the yard, and she tries to scream, and things get out of hand, and rather than Lenny just letting her go and run off, he hangs onto her hair, and he puts a hand over her mouth and tells her to be quiet, and then shakes her to be quiet. And given the size of Lenny, he's a big bloke, he breaks her neck, and he hides her in the hay, and he runs off because he's obviously frightened. And then the body is discovered, and all hell breaks loose. One thing I will backtrack on: when things rise to a head with Lenny and Curly, the ranch owner's son, it comes to a head where George says to Lenny, just get him. Lenny grabs Curly's hand because Curly used to be a boxer and he thinks he's so good, Golden Glove winner, and Lenny is really strong and crushes Curly's hand with, cracks all the bones and blood pouring down his wrist, and that sort of thing. So it gives you an idea of how powerful and how strong Lenny is. So the body's discovered, and everyone takes off hunting for Lenny because they're out for blood, especially Curly. And what happens is they eventually catch up with him, but George reaches him first because when they first started work at this ranch, George told Lenny that if there's any trouble, he needs to run to the creek where they came to before going to the ranch to work. And George is ahead of the pack and catches up with Lenny first, and George is faced with a heartbreaking decision of what to do, because what Lenny's done, even though unintentional on his part, it is a crime, and part of George can't let it slide, but part of George doesn't want to do it either. So what George does is he tells Lenny to face the water, and George tells him about the rabbit hutch that they have dreamt about getting as part of a property. There's a recurring theme of dreams unfulfilled here, and it's so heartbreaking, and I don't mind admitting I teared up reading this part. It is so tragic. So what happens is Lenny looks out over the water, and George has got a gun, and basically puts the gun to his head and pulls the trigger, and that ends the story. But I think it's so sad that both George and Lenny have this dream of getting this property. And just to backtrack a little bit, when they speak with Candy at the ranch, he wants to join them because the dream that they share with Candy is contagious, and Candy feels he's at a point in his life where he wants a change, and he can do odd jobs around the yard and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a very powerful story. It's very tragic, and if there was one thing I could criticise the book for, I would have liked to have seen an epilogue where George actually gets to own a piece of property and put rabbits in honour of Lenny's memory. I think that would have been just a really nice little touch to close off the book. But hey, I'm giving this book 5 stars. If you haven't read it and you don't mind the spoilers I've given, please do yourself a favour and read it. It is so important. For such a short book, it packs a mighty punch, and this was a couple of weeks ago when I finished it, and I just wanted to let things settle, and a lot of things have stayed with me. It has caused such an impact that it has become one of my favourite books of all time. I can boldly make that claim. So definitely a 5-star read for me, and I can't praise this book enough, and I will certainly be looking at reading some more of John Steinbeck's work without a doubt. So I hope you enjoyed the review. It went a little over my usual 5 minutes, but it's such a great book. I had a fair bit to say about it. So please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please offer any comments down below and I will respond to those. Let me know if you've read Of Mice and Men. Let me know what you thought about it and what you may not have liked about it. But that is it from me. Next video coming out, I'm doing February Fantasy Stories Week 2. This week I'm doing Conan the Conqueror. I'll release the video for that hopefully on Saturday, and I also plan on doing a review video for Quicksilver by Dean Koontz, which won't be as glowing as this review I just did, so just a heads up there. But look forward to speaking with you all soon, and until next time, see you later.